This time on episode 182 of Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., we're going to talk about Legion Chapter 2. We're going to talk about the weekly Marvel news and your feedback.
I'm Jeannie from Tyrion's Landing, a podcast member of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the one you're listening to now. The opinions expressed are those of each individual. Check out all the other podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com and get ready because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
You have been granted clearance by Director Phil Coulson. Stand by for S.H.I.E.L.D. debriefing. All information to be discussed here is classified and may only be discussed among agents granted clearance by the S.H.I.E.L.D. Director.
Now it's time for your scheduled debriefing. I'm Director Stargate Pioneer.
I'm Agent Haley.
And I'm Agent Lauren.
Welcome to Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., a Marvel Comic Universe fan show. The show is recorded on Sunday, June 18th, 2017. Happy Father's Day!
Yay!
Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a fan-based podcast on the ABC television show Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Marvel's Daredevil Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist on Netflix, Legion on FX, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and the Marvel Comic Universe in general.
Because of King.
If you'd like to talk to us about King, you can reach us at our website, legendsofshield.com.
You can call us with a voicemail message about King at 844-THE-BUS-1 or 844-843-2871.
If you want to talk to Lauren and me and leave out Star Pie when you talk about King, you can check out our Facebook page, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. Podcast.
If you want to talk to all three of us, you can reach us on Twitter at Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D.
You want to leave a comment on YouTube about King, you can catch our YouTube channel where we post a companion video. That's youtube.com/GonnaGeek.
And remember, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a proud member of the GonnaGeek.com network.
Just plowing into episode 2 of the FX series Legion, we have a new director that is not the showrunner this time.
No, this one was directed by Michael Uppendahl. He has 19 directing credits going back to 2003. He did 4 episodes of Becker, 1 episode of Weeds, 1 of Longmore. That's supposed to be Longmire.
It is supposed to be Longmire.
Longmire. 2 episodes of Glee, 1 of The Walking Dead, 11 episodes of Mad Men, 9 episodes of American Horror Story, 1 of Daredevil, 1 of Fear the Walking Dead, 5 of Fargo, and he did 3 episodes of Legion this season. This one, the next one, and the finale.
He's also a producer, co-executive producer for the show. Now, Lauren.
Which makes sense if he directs almost half the episodes.
That's true.
Yeah.
Lauren, we have a special writer for this episode, don't we?
Yes, this episode was written by Noah Hawley. He has 6 writing credits since 2005, 6 of Bones, 3 of The Unusuals, 2 of My Generation, 23 of Fargo, 3 of Legion, and he is the showrunner.
Mm-hmm. Written the premiere episode and this episode. I wonder, I can't remember, was this a 2-hour premiere? I don't think it was.
It was not.
Yeah.
It was long, though. It was like 1 hour and 15 minutes, I think.
The premiere or this one?
Yeah. No, the premiere was, not this one.
Right. So probably why they didn't smash the 2 of them together. Although FX is just famous for doing the long episodes, like with The Americans, and
like just letting it run a little longer if it needs to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you're running like nothing but movies before and after your 1 hour of TV, you can do that.
Yeah.
Definitely. This is chapter 2, as we talked about last time. These episodes are labeled by chapter, comic book thing. It's kind of like the Heroes thing, but take off the title after the chapter 2. It's just chapter 1 through 8. So that's what we're dealing with.
And also, let's face it, it's better than Heroes.
I will say that too once you figure out what's going on, which we have yet to do for Legion. It starts out in Summerland. Now, Lauren, what is Summerland?
It's as far as, okay, so when I first saw the show, I was like, so is this basically like discount the X Mansion? And basically, yes, this is Melanie Bird's kind of mutant sanctuary place where she teaches them, or they learn how to use their powers and defend themselves.
Would this be the New Mutant Mansion?
Kind of. It's less a mansion and more of like a really like Art Deco type of. Well, I guess technically it is kind of a mansion because it looks really expensive.
It is, and it has voice commands too.
Yeah, it's very like high tech considering my husband was hanging out on the couch with me for part of the episode. I was watching it while I was working yesterday, and we were admiring the like early 80s aesthetic of everything. And then there's randomly just high tech stuff thrown in because it's X-Men. And of course there's high tech stuff thrown in.
So this was labeled as the place that really didn't exist. I don't know if that's true for comic books or not, but that's what it's labeled as. And this is something that confused me the first time I was watching it. Second time around, knew what was happening, but still it was confusing to watch that they were being chased by Division 3 and the Eye through the forest. So it was confusing as to they don't actually get to the mansion and there's this chase going on. So I guess it was just put in there to signify that Division 3 was still on their tail. I don't know, but it wasn't real time, or maybe it was. I don't know. Still confusing.
They just edited out the part where they got away.
Mm-hmm. Now, Haley, I'm going to throw this to you, is that this start of this episode goes really into David detoxing from his drugs from Clockworks.
Right. Because they can't do the work that they're planning to do, where they delve into his powers if he's still, sedated and otherwise medicated for the mental illness that they don't think he has at this point.
They don't. And he is clearly not in his right mind just because of the drugs. He can't think straight. He's got weird stuff going on and memory blocks, as we'll talk about in a little bit. He is labeled a telepath and a telekinetic mutant.
Yeah, and we've seen examples of this in the previous episode. We keep going back to that scene of the kitchen exploding, and that's kind of a recurring theme throughout the show. And the telepathy, we know he's hearing voices, and we don't, as of now, we think, oh, that's just the telepathy. But, being Legion and comic fans knowing what they do about Legion, how much of those voices are telepathy and how much of that is alternate personalities?
And we've seen another mutant that has that same power set, Jean Grey, which made me on this watch wonder if, in future seasons, maybe they'll bring in the Phoenix Force or something like that.
That would be kind of cool.
Who's in the Phoenix Force?
Well, the Phoenix Force is a cosmic entity that...
kind of like the Speed Force.
Kind of.
It's more of an alien, really.
Yeah.
It devours
Jean
worlds.
Grey is the most well-known vessel for the Phoenix Force.
But there have been others.
Yeah.
And it tends to... it eats worlds, and it tends to seek out really powerful vessels. So you have Jean Grey, and you have her daughter from an alternate timeline, Rachel Grey, and I'm pretty sure Quentin Quire hosted it at one point, and he's also a telepath. And, oh God, there's been so many.
So the Phoenix Force would be interesting in a season 2 or subsequent season. Yeah, okay.
I don't think Legion's actually ever hosted it, but...
And, if they're planning to do that as part of the next movie, they probably wouldn't do it in the TV show, but it could be interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting to know in any event, whether they use it or not, or use it in the film or whatever. It's something that I didn't know. So maybe our listener didn't know either. Something that I found interesting the first time is this memory work. It really starts to help frame for us what is going on. And it really, the second time around, it really starts to help frame what's going on in this series. They continually think that David is not sick, that he is powerful, that he is mutant, which is all true. And they're trying to rewrite the story of his life, meaning they're trying to look at instances where he started discovering his power, what happened, and that it was really his power and not something else. But along the way, they run into these skips in the DVD, which I'll just classify as memory blocks. I just think it was really interesting because you see it the first time and nobody knows what's going on. And then they keep on rewinding to try to get to it. And it starts to manifest that there is something else going on. It's not just his power.
Yeah. So two things I want to point out. One, this is actually a therapy technique, of going back to the point of like a trauma and re-examining it until it's, no longer as painful. The other thing that I want to point out is when I first saw the episode, it really makes it seem like David is doing this deliberately, like he's doing this to be deliberately difficult.
Yes.
And then on a rewatch, when you kind of know more of what's happening, you can really see the blocks. Like it's a lot clearer to see what's going on. This is a show, by the way, that really, really benefits from a rewatch. And like you said, it's basically a skip in a DVD if the skip was put there maliciously.
Yeah, I picked up so many little things on this rewatch, like the breadcrumbs that were laid all the way through the series to get you to the conclusion, which we can't really point out without giving away huge spoilers. But just know that when you go back and watch it, you're going to be like, oh!
Exactly. And we were talking about this pre-show, but we decided to try to keep it as spoiler-free as possible. But Haley, I remember when this first came out, I wasn't caught up at this point in time to the series when we podcasted at that same week. And you were still like, what is going on with the show? And then when I watched it, I was like, what is going on with the show? In chapter 2, I think through chapter 4 or 5. And then I started to understand what was going on. But this was
I just gave up on understanding.
Yeah, and just try to watch it and say, okay, at some point in time, they'll tell me what's going on, maybe. And the payoff is worth it. And the rewatch is even worth it too, as well. I want to point, along those lines, I want to point out the scene, if you're watching this for the first time, the scene with his sister Amy when they were younger in the field with the dog means something. It is very quick. It is very nonchalant, and you don't even think about it until the second watch through.
When you're watching this the first time, it's just like, oh, that's just like a sweet, happy memory they took him to for the first try on this. So it's something calm and, you don't have to worry about him freaking out about anything. But it's not exactly what you're seeing.
Yeah. And something else that I wanted to point out, we really get the seeds to a lot of stuff back in the first episode. Remember when we were talking about how impressed I was with the memory work and how we see Sid being implanted in his memory, and then we see the memory of his memory of that. And we really see that kind of in effect through the rest of the season. We see how fickle memory is. And we get the seeds of that in that episode, and then it gets built upon in this episode with Ptolemy doing his memory work. And we find out that he is kind of the one who was able to get Sid into his memory there. Mm-hmm. And by the way, that is a cool power.
Yeah, not just that memory, also the memory of, the guy getting out of the car at the institution. And he's like, oh, no, that's not what you're remembering. So they tell you from the first episode that just because they tell us this is his memory doesn't mean that's exactly how things happen. It's how he remembers it happening.
And one more thing about... I blanked out on what I was going to say just now. I'll remember it in a bit.
Lauren will have her own memory work during the podcast.
Exactly. It's the faultiness of memory.
One of the things that I was like, WTF with this episode was the world's angriest boy book. I'm like, that is seriously messed up stuff for a parent to be reading that to a kid.
I mean, it reminded me a little bit of Shel Silverstein.
I think it's supposed to be like, it's supposed to look like, oh, that's a book that Shel Silverstein wrote, and then you read what's actually in it, and it's
terrible. And and again, this is David's faulty memories, and
you don't see...
again, a thing that comes back again throughout the show.
Right. But for this episode, you don't ever get to see the dad's face. You get to see that both the past David and the current David are frightened by it or whatever else is going on in the room. And we get to see his mom, though, which seems to be happy memories, but dad's nowhere to be seen. And
did you notice that the dad's voice, at least, and kind of it's implied by the outline, is Dan Stevens, the actor who plays David?
Yes, I did notice that.
I did not, but very good catch. Good catch indeed. Another thing that is perpetual throughout this season, we're not done with it yet, is the psychologist's office. And this is not at Clockworks. This is his work that he has done before that. And there's that tape recorder there that you have this weird echo of, and like something's recording it and David can hear it or whatever. And then we're really introduced to the whole girlfriend Philly and what's going on in their lives and the trouble that's going on there. Although it's not concluded whatsoever. Actually, we were introduced to it last time, but it's brought forward this time as well. And then you get this whole Lenny thing with the vapor and the drugs and the stove, and it's just all combined into the psychologist's office. I think he's a psychologist, right? Dr. Poole, he's a psychologist?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's all going on. And when they're doing the memory work, they start rewind. It's at this point that they start saying, what's going on here in the memory work? Like all of a sudden there's time glitches and different things. And then Ptolemy is trying to take them to certain places, and he's getting redirected all over the place. And as you said it before, it's that David is their thoughts is David is actively resisting. And it definitely appears that way, but there's more going on.
Yeah. And one of the things that I want to point out, well, there's two things I really want to point out about that scene. Whenever we see David at this point of his life, you can tell him by the hair, it's very disheveled, very floppy looking. And also, he's always wearing variations of a black and white striped shirt, like a prisoner.
So
I had not noticed that.
I did notice the prisoner shirt, but what do you mean by this time in his life? Where do you frame it?
It's kind of very self-destructive. It's before he goes to Clockworks.
Okay. So it's after his
his adult life before Clockworks.
Yes.
Okay. That's good to know.
But yeah, it's something that, again, I noticed on this rewatch. There's so much attention paid to the set design and the music and everything. And it's a mistake to think that they were not making deliberate choices with the costume design as well. So I remember reading something about a later costume that you see David wearing at one point. And so this time I was trying to see, okay, well, what commonalities is he wearing at this point? And I see the black and white, and I'm like, oh, it's a very deliberate callback to a prisoner. And again, that makes sense later on.
It does indeed. So as they start the memory work and they run into this glitch, David kind of completely regresses. He doesn't want to go any further, and he has to be blacked out by Ptolemy. Is that how you say his name anyway?
Yeah, that's how they keep pronouncing it. It bugs me because it should be pronounced Ptolemy, but they keep saying Ptolemy, and it bugs me. But anyway.
So, first of all, I could never do memory work because apparently milk helps afterwards, and I'm lactose intolerant, so I don't know if they have any soy around the Summerland or not. If they've
got some almond milk for you.
Yeah, I hope it's, the almond, coconut, vanilla. That's the best, really. But yeah, so if it's just milk, that's not going to help. But we learned that Dr. Melanie Bird does what do they call it? The talk work afterwards? The talking afterwards to really
like talk therapy.
Yeah, to really drive that out. So there's that going on. And you've got this whole series of scenes with Sid out in the woods around the mansion at different spots, on a swing set, on a park bench overlooking the lake, stuff like that. So
speaking of Sid,
the
first time I watched through the show, I was under the impression that Sid went into Clockworks deliberately to recruit David. This time, I realized that her being recruited was a complete accident.
Yes.
They had no idea that she was a mutant, what her powers were, that she was even on anybody's radar. And I still don't think she would have been if it had not been that she ended up through the body swap in their car.
Exactly. And I did not realize that until this watch through. Something else I did not realize was that this episode is technically mostly a flashback. Because a lot of it actually, if I remember it, a lot of it takes place while David is in an MRI machine.
Yes.
And he's being told, think of someone you love. So he's thinking of Sid, and it's all going back to this whole event that took place earlier and him talking with Sid. So again, David's mind is all over the place.
So first of all, if any of y'all end up in my car, like body swapped into somebody else, or you're body swapped into yourself in the car, I'm stopping the car, I'm running off the side of the road, and I'm running away, because that stuff's just not normal. I'm not just sitting there looking at you.
Oh, you anti-mutant bigot.
Not yet. No, I'd just be scared. Like, what's going on? You could be a bad mutant. You could be bad inhuman. I don't know what your power is.
Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. Fear is the path to the dark side.
Apparently, I'm already at the dark side, so there you go. So that's the one thing there. The other thing that Lauren brought up, the MRI machine. First of all, David has an extremely large amygdala, which I remember from the trailers. That was the one thing that was said over and over. You have an extremely large amygdala. Like, okay.
And if we remember anything from Firefly, it's that is the center of the brain that controls fear.
I did remember that from Firefly. I did. I remember that from Firefly more than I remember that from actual biology in school.
Honestly, so do I. So,
woohoo, sci-fi for the win. Yes,
actually. Whatever helps you remember things.
By the way, talking about Firefly, I feel like we need to bring this up since it just recently happened. Of course, Adam West passed away in the last week, and it's the DC universe. We're talking about Marvel universe. Adam West was the original 60s TV version of Batman. He recently was on a episode of Powerless that never aired. Now, Powerless was a DC comedy show that got canceled, a couple of episodes left in the season. Adam West was on the last episode of that was never aired. And since he passed away recently, talking about Firefly, the pilot, comes to mind. And he is on Powerless as well. And they showed that episode for free. I think it was DC Comics put it up there for free on YouTube. So you can watch the episode in entirety. And it's going to be what I remember last about Adam West kind of playing a Batman-like character.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So you can go and see that as well. So yeah, good memory work indeed, Lauren, that you did for me on the amygdala there with Firefly.
So yeah, this brings in the question. If we know that he has an unusually large amygdala, and that means that, lots of fear, why would he have a lot of fear? Questions to ponder.
True. And when he's talking about who he loved, he went to both Sid and Amy. And the Amy thing is what really drove him nuts. And that's when the scan device ended up out in the garden.
Yes, that was cool. Oh, by the way, something else to talk about in that scene. We see Carrie and Carrie. Carrie with a C, guy Carrie. Carrie with a K, girl Carrie. And we get kind of the first hints of what's going on with them. Guy Carey is seemingly talking to somebody who's not there, having a one-sided conversation. But then every now and then we get a shot with Carrie with a K, girl Carrie, also in the scene.
Is there any reason why the guy is C and the girl is K? Is there some sort of male, female of the letters?
I don't know. I think that's just how they spelled. I actually know a couple of guys named Carrie whose names are spelled with a C. And I know at least one girl named Carrie spelled with a K. But, I mean, it's not universal. So it's just how it happens to be.
Which is weird because you wouldn't know that unless you read the credits.
Or turned on closed captioning. No, they actually they talk about it. He asked.
I think they do talk about it.
Yeah, David asked Carrie, like the other Carrie? He's like, yeah, but with a C versus a K. Yeah,
but with a K versus a C. And yeah, we see. There's also that really horrible scene when David's freaking out in the MRI where we see the demon with yellow eyes Like that chomping noise. Ugh,
every time that I'm not into horror, as you guys know, and every time I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh. So yeah, it is a little horrific. There is a horror faction of Marvel Comics and the mutants. Absolutely.
Again, why would he have such a large amygdala and such cause for fear? Let me think.
His whole, yeah, okay. I almost went to a spoiler right there.
But yeah, we see Amy, at Clockworks being told that David was never there and his psychologist was never there, even though we know something's up because they're repairing all the damage that was done.
Did they say his psychologist was named Henry Kissinger?
I don't think so.
Oh,
okay.
Dr. Kissinger. They did say it was Dr. Kissinger, though. Oh, I'm going to have to go back and just see that scene just for that. I think it was some sort of K name that the doctor was.
It was a K name, but I didn't think it was Henry Kissinger.
We know what Haley's thinking of.
But yeah,
I didn't have time to back and rewatch it, but I could have sworn I heard them say that.
But yeah, you notice at Clockworks the color scheme is now completely different, and they're redoing everything, and they're putting doors back in, and
yeah, and painting white and blue. Yeah, you're right. There's definitely work going on in the hall. So go back to a different part of the memory. The whole blue vapor thing, I don't know if I would feel right about taking a hallucinogen vapor from a frog humidifier. I just think that would end up bad down the road, like some sort of vision about frog.
Would you prefer? I mean,
no animal at all, actually, because that's just going to turn into my vision later as something that's going to eat my head.
See, I'd prefer a sloth. Sloths are so friendly.
Well,
maybe a capybara. Capybaras are nature's like chill animal bro.
Corgis, maybe?
Oh, that's a good choice too.
I say that because I just reread Mockingbird number 8 recently.
I feel though the problem with corgis though is they are not like proportioned the way you think an animal should be proportioned. So then once you're high, you're going to be like, what is wrong with this dog?
No, but they're friendly. They're like a little bread loaf with ears.
And then again, we see David freaking out because Lenny turns into the devil with yellow eyes just for a brief second. And they're like, oh my gosh, what's going on, David? And he's like, I don't know. David thinks that there's something seriously wrong with him. And
well, no, David just thinks that he was really high. And they're like, what did you see? And he's like, oh, I was high. Like, I saw stuff.
But he's never descriptive of it. He's protective of what he's actually seeing.
Because he doesn't want them to think he's crazy.
And then, that is his whole thing. He's like, I was crazy. I was high. I mean, what do you expect?
Do you share your dreams when they're crazy in the morning?
Yes.
See, he should do the same thing.
But there's that stigma against mentally ill people. If you talk about what you see or hear or something, then you get punished for it. Which, by the way, this is something I wanted to bring up earlier. There is a TED Talk. I know there's a lot of back and forth about how helpful TED Talks are, but this one is really good about understanding schizophrenia. It's by Eleanor Longden, Longden, and it's called The Voices in My Head. And it's a woman describing her experiences with schizophrenia. And it's, if you want to hear about firsthand from somebody who does experience schizophrenia, what it's like to one day just start hearing voices and have to deal with that in your everyday life, seriously, give it a listen.
Noted. I need more TED Talks in my life. I guessed it on another podcast a few weeks back, Ritual and Misery. And as part of their podcast, they do a TED video every week. They didn't do a TED video the week that we did. It was a skateboarder video that they saw on Facebook of this guy that tried 2 years to get this move right. But it got me thinking, I need more TED Talks in my life. So I will definitely go check that one out. And David is trying to check out of Summerland. And as he does that, Sid corners him in the elevator, which is voice controlled, which is pretty neat, and encourages him to do the work that saying Amy, by the way, is kidnapped. Saying,
kidnapped by the guy with the wonky eye and the bad perm.
Mm-hmm. I'll codename the Eye in the series.
Because, of course.
Of course. And he actually acquiesces and decides to stay and do the work. So I thought that was definitely beneficial, having Sid in his life. He's obviously trusting Sid, and Sid is understanding him on a level that I have no idea. Maybe it's because they did the body swap and she realizes every level of what's going on with David. I don't know. But
she mentions earlier in the episode, she's like, we need to talk about what happened, because when we swapped, it's like all of a sudden there was voices everywhere and everything was so loud and so bright and everyone was yelling. And then there was this weird thing and I freaked out. Is this what it's like for you all the time? So yeah, I think she kind of gets him a little better now.
What do you think about Sid and David, Haley?
This one had the sweet start of the romance of the mind scene here. So the early parts of their relationship, there are very sweet moments to it. Parts of it get much darker later, but that's not there yet.
Yeah.
She does don the gloves so she can hold hands with him. So,
yeah, she has the rogue gloves. And I did like that she pointed out that even if she didn't have her powers, she doesn't like people touching her. And it feels like ants on her skin. And I know exactly what she's talking about, because there's just, again, I think I mentioned last week, sometimes I don't like to be touched and it feels like spiders walking on me.
I hate spiders.
And yeah, and it's this feeling. And again, everybody has their issues. And when she's at the end of the episode, when she's like, I mean, we can hold hands. And he's like, no, don't. I really liked that he's willing to respect that, because, when I first saw the show, it really seemed that their relationship started out of just nowhere. It's like, oh, cute boy, cute girl. Of course they're going to date. And as their whole relationship of the mind progresses, there's a lot more of a cause for it. Like, she understands him better. Where at first it seems like she's just kind of tolerating him. And he begins to understand her better and respect her boundaries more.
It is an interesting relationship, and I'm excited to see the rest of the series. I mean, the first episode was okay. This episode really got me into what the rest of the series is going to be like, because as Haley mentioned, you get the breadcrumbs of exactly what's going to go on the rest of the series. And by the way, there is a big cliffhanger at the end, so we're not talking about something that's all tied up in a bow at the end. There is a reason to have a season 2, and thank you, FX, for giving us the season 2. Now, at the end, I saw it as a post-credit scene on the Amazon Prime watch through. Apparently, in different versions, it's before the credits. But we see Amy getting interrogated by the Eye, and you know that this is not going to end well.
Yeah, on Hulu, it's not a post-credits. Which, by the way, that's where we've been watching, respectively. SP's been watching on Amazon. I've been watching on Hulu. Right now, okay, last week it had all of the episodes as expiring. Now it only has the first episode as expiring. So
we got to stay ahead of that expiring date for you.
I guess they figured something out. I don't know.
Okay. Well, that is all of my notes for the week. Haley, do you have any last words before we move on?
No, we hit all my points.
Okay. Lauren, any last stabs?
I don't believe so. I think I said everything that I meant to bring up.
All right. Exciting episode. Did you two still like the show, like the episode after watching this?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
All right. Yeah.
I like it much better on the rewatch.
Yeah. Again, this is a show that seriously benefits from a rewatch. Like, the first watch through is good. And the second one, where you can just kind of sit back and appreciate the storytelling, just do it.
It's like the Sixth Sense. You keep getting new things every time you watch it. All right. So that's it for this week for Legion. Next Sunday, we'll be going over Chapter 3 of Legion. And don't forget, we're still broadcasting during the week. This week will be our last Wednesday broadcast until we move to Thursday. But Wednesday, we'll be going over the Luke Cage finale. You know my steez. With that, let's move on to some news.
Okay, first up, Marvel's The Inhumans trailer has hit the web. But maybe it wasn't supposed to, because the article we're linking to says that the video does not exist.
Yeah, it was up for just a few hours and I missed seeing it. But yeah, it was leaked very briefly. One thing that did remain was a clip of Lockjaw and Black Bolt arriving in the middle of Honolulu. And Lockjaw looks okay.
Nice.
Yeah. Lockjaw is a big bulldog puppy.
I'm excited to see Honolulu again. It's been a few years since I've been there. This might inspire me to take a vacation out there next February.
Yes, go there, see the whales. It's amazing.
And more movie news coming up. We've got confirmation from Kevin Feige and Amy Pascal that the Venom and Black Cat movies that people have been talking about are taking place in the same universe as Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yeah, I watched the video to make sure that is, in fact, what they're saying. And that it's not just because Amy Pascal isn't quite as involved in Sony as she used to be. But Kevin Feige is sitting there with her. And yes, he does confirm, yeah, we're going to do this. So we'll see.
Yay.
Maybe it'll open the door for more Marvel Fox coordination down the road as well. We'll see.
That sounds optimistic.
That would be amazing.
But talking about Fox and the X-Men universe, the first Deadpool 2 set photo has shown up, and it's related to Spider-Man.
Yeah, you remember that first poster where it's him just kind of lying one knee up in front of New York? This is like that, but it's Deadpool in front of the X-Mansion. So, because Deadpool in the comics has that obsession with Spider-Man. So, of course, he's going to spoof Spider-Man. Anyway, it's cool they're filming.
Yeah. And last up, Jack Kirby is to be honored as a Disney legend at D23 Expo.
Interesting. This is very interesting.
Disney has started doing its own kind of Comic-Con, the D23 Expo, in the past several years. And Jack Kirby, who has sadly been dead for several years, is going to be honored for his contribution to Marvel, which Disney now owns.
So he's been known to be a Marvel legend, for the lack of a better term, for quite some time now, for all his great work. It's interesting that Disney is doing this because they just recently acquired the property. To my knowledge, beforehand, Jack did not have any dealings with Disney.
He did not, but it's, oh my God, you say recently. I just looked at the date. It's been almost 10 years.
Since what?
They bought Marvel in 2009.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know, right? I mean, I feel very old.
So this is kind of rewriting history a little. I mean, I appreciate it. I really do. But Jack Kirby has nothing to do with Disney. So I'm just wondering what the spin is here.
But they own Marvel and he has a lot to do with Marvel. So
yeah,
they're calling it.
I mean, he co-created Captain America. He co-created a lot of the characters that are making him bank at the moment. Yeah. So
he was, for the first decade of Marvel Comics, was a huge part of creation and development of characters.
Yeah, so maybe this signifies the fact that Disney is never going to let go of Marvel ever.
No. Why would they?
Well, as long as it's making the money.
Yeah, I get that. But if they're going to make him a Disney legend, then it's a longer business relationship than just that. They're owning, I know they own it right now, but I mean, they're owning everything. They're owning the essence of Marvel by doing that. So I don't know. It's more than what it seems, at least to me. So just keep your eyes on this in the future as future Disney legends come out of Marvel, I guess, and Disney continues to shape the history of the Marvel Universe. That's my take on it. All right, that's it. That's our last news story. We'll have more on Wednesday. In the meantime, let's move on to some feedback.
All right, we have some really interesting stuff tweeted to us from some of our listeners. At Mr. Pericletes sent us this picture from Corey Morgan at the Corey 291. My daughter Noelle, 16-year-old engineering genius, cosplaying as 15-year-old engineering genius Riri Williams. And the picture is so fantastic. Again, this is why representation matters. It's people need to see themselves in movies, in books, in comics, because I mean, it's so great to look at somebody and be like, that's me. This is a young Black girl who's an engineer. Or that's me. That's a young Muslim girl who is a nerd and fights crime. Or can fight crime, can do good. Or, you know, that's me. That's, you know, this young Hispanic kid who, you know, also fights crime. Just the fact that there's just such a wealth of these characters now, so that, you know, kids can cosplay and kids can identify with these characters. I mean, there wasn't this variety when I was a kid. When I was a kid, it was, okay, find the one girl on the team and that's who you get to be in the playground. And I mean, it's not like that anymore, and it's fantastic.
It is. I don't want to minimize the diversity here, but recently we did an episode in the Starling Tribune about Legends of Tomorrow, which is a CW show, Legends of Tomorrow. And a couple of the hero characters were really inspired by Star Wars and George Lucas. And there was some time travel stuff and something happened to George Lucas, and they lost their abilities because they weren't inspired by George Lucas, because he didn't take the path that he was going to take. Now, everything turned out fine in the end, but so, yeah, nothing happened to George Lucas, and Star Wars still happened. I need to watch that episode. Yeah, it's titled Raiders of the Lost Art, not Ark, Art, A-R-T, and it was a fantastic episode. So if you want to check that out, that is over on StarlingTribune.com. And one thing I will say directly to Noelle, who's the 16-year-old engineering genius who's cosplaying here, unlike Riri, stay in school. Stay in school. Don't get kicked out of MIT.
Season 2 of Legends of Tomorrow is delightful.
It's on my to-watch list, I think. Right now, we're doing a binge watch of Winona Earp. So it's coming up, I think.
How's that?
It's really fun. So there's this, it's kind of like Supernatural in that it's like families killing demons, except it's about girls and they don't kill the women or the gays.
Okay.
Yeah, I've looked in. That's on the Sci-Fi Channel, right?
Yes. The second season just started. And the first season is on Netflix. So
I've been watching Dark Matter, and it's as good as it's ever been. Enjoy it.
That's another one on my to-watch list.
Yeah.
So friend of the show, Andy Minga, retweeted Peter Scaretta. He said, love me some M. Giacchino score. And then Peter Scaretta said, listen to Michael Giacchino's Spider-Man Homecoming Suite. See the full score track list. And there's a link. And I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet because I've been kind of busy with work. But I will give it a listen as soon as possible. So
it's a wonderful blend of the traditional Marvel Avengers theme music and the actual Spider-Man music. It's just amazing. So go check that out. And the link will be in the show notes.
Yeah. And the movie's coming out really soon. Like
a couple weeks.
Yeah. It's just bearing down even faster. And friend of the show, Christy at Adonna Girl, retweeted Jill Pantozzi and said, Alicia's in Wonder Woman. The article is, who is she? 31 more Amazons from Wonder Woman's Themyscira. So you remember the Ginger Ninja from, the Inhumans arc?
Right.
She's an Amazon. So that's cool. We all knew she was capable of great things.
Indeed.
This time, though, there's only one of her instead of like 5, however many there were.
Yeah, she was predominantly a stunt person right? Before acting.
If I remember correctly, yeah.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter. It was a female stunt heavy film, obviously, and she did great on that, but I just like seeing her on camera. I think everybody does. She needs more roles.
She does. And at the link, there's a picture of her in her Amazon outfit with a sword, and another one of her hanging out with some like stunt dummies, and it's cute.
So thank you for bringing that to attention, Christy. That's it for the feedback. This time, we're going to walk this one out. Woohoo! Made it to the end. We are excited to bring this great content to you, and we are excited that you are downloading it, and excited enough for me to say thank you. Thank you very much. We really appreciate you, because without you, we wouldn't be doing this. We would have packed this up years and years ago. So thank you for being active in our lives.
How weird is it that it's been years and years?
It's coming up to be almost 5 years. So it's been around for a while.
Thank you to everybody on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, anyone who leaves us comments, who sends us things that you think we'd get a kick out of, who sends us news articles. You make our lives easier. You make our lives fun. We really, really appreciate it. And we love hearing from you.
Yeah. Thanks to everybody that sends us feedback. Thanks to everybody who is coming in for the double episodes through the summer and into the fall. Let us know what you think of this. If there's another way you might like us to do this, or if you think this way is working out really well, we want to hear from you, because we do this for you because we love you.
Indeed. And just to give you a heads up, this double episode, unless we're told otherwise, it's scheduled until Thanksgiving. That's how this is going.
At least.
Yeah.
We have so much catching up to do.
There's just been so much
Marvel,
great content.
you're killing us, but we love you.
Indeed. All right, that's it for this week, or this half week. We will see everybody Wednesday. Until next time, I'm Director Stargate Pioneer.
I'm Agent Haley.
And I'm Agent Lauren.
See you guys on Wednesday. The last Wednesday broadcast.
Oh.
See you guys next time. Bye.
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 Thank you for listening. If you want to leave us feedback, go to gonnageek.com and you will find all our contact information and other shows. You can also visit legendsofshield.com, where you'll find our complete archive of podcasts. The music heard on this podcast is by Kevin MacLeod, found at incompetech.com, and also artists on pond5.com and audiojungle.net. The opinions heard on this podcast are those of the individual hosts and do not represent Stargate Pioneer Productions, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D, or Gonna Geek. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D is the property of the Disney Corporation, Marvel Studios, and ABC. No infringement is intended. Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D is copyright 2017.